of them coming off the arm of Vinny Testaverde in the first quarter, and Houston quickly turned them into 2 touchdown passes by Chris Chandler. So the numbers for Vinny Testaverde, he did hit Michael Jackson in the second quarter for an 8-yard score, but those 2 miscues, along with the miscue and the game clock going into the locker room, could turn out to be huge.
Ted Marchibroda preaches consistency. He doesn't like his team to be up and down, to be good and bad and good and bad. Vinny Testaverde, in his defense, the first interception was not his fault. He threw a terrific pass that hit the receiver right in the chest. The receiver didn't wrap up on the ball, and the defender, Lewis, just did a good job of taking the ball away from the receiver. The second one was a situation, was a rollout where Vinny turned his back to the defensive backs and lost track of them.
In the meantime, another excellent half for Chandler. 10 of 13, 2 more touchdown passes. He had 3 touchdown passes last week, so in the last 6 quarters, he's got 5 touchdown passes. And we mentioned at the top, the way he describes it is that the field looks smaller, all the action looks smaller, and he just has that much of a control over it.
He's playing with so much confidence right now. He thinks that he's one of the best, or that he can play with the best quarterbacks in the league. He can produce like they're producing, and he's showing it. He doesn't have a lot of yards, but 10 of 13 is terrific percentage completion. It helps keep those drives going. A lot of the short ones going to Frank Wycheck, the short touchdown pass early on. Good job.
So Matt Stover to Mel Gray. Mel Gray juking close to the 20-yard line and turning in another pretty good return across the 30-yard line. Carwell Gardner, the special teams tackle for the Ravens.
Mel Gray will make people miss. He's the type of guy that teams will fear. Even here's a guy that's 11th year in the NFL.
Fumbled the opening kickoff in Jacksonville last week, but then made up for it with, as we mentioned, a 62-yard kickoff return, which is the longest in the NFL this year. And as you take a look at Houston Oilers in the last 18 games,
when they've been leading at the half, they've won 8 of them, lost none.
Chandler off the mark, so now he's 10 of 14, intended for Willie Davis, Antonio Langham on the coverage.
Ted Marchibroda has to be encouraged about the play from his defense as far as not giving up the big plays and preventing the big yards. But then again, the 2 touchdown passes by Chandler came on 3rd downs when they had excellent opportunities to stop them.
Is this as quiet an NFL stadium as you've been in a long time? Rodney Thomas gets his first carry of the game. That'll make the fans make some noise. He's got the first down right down by Mike Caldwell. As you take a look at some of the other scores, Green Bay 21-3 at halftime.
Brett Favre is playing very well. MVP last year and coming on.
How about the Jets working for their first win of the season? Miami,
who'd have thought they had a chance?
Has yet to lose. O'Donnell beginning to heat up, 9 of 13. And Houston with a 17-7 lead here. This is their opening series to begin the second half. They have a 1st and 10 at the 43. On the mark to Wycheck, and he's very close to another first down. So Wycheck picking up in the second half where he left off in the first half. He had a touchdown catch there.
Frank Wycheck is a guy that seems to get open. We're talking to him. He likes to run his pass patterns out of the backfield as he did in that situation. He's able to break on the defender, and he feels gives him better timing.
5 catches for 37 yards for Wycheck. 2nd down and 2. And the give to Rodney Thomas. Nice spin move in the backfield, but unlike George was able to do last week, Thomas can't get out of it. It was Rodney Thomas who Was very, very much a part of the offense last year. Almost 1,000 yards for the Oilers, but with Eddie George emerging, he doesn't get as many carries.
You see penetration by the Ravens defensive front that causes him to try to cut back. Ravens are doing a much better job they did last week, where they gave up over 200 yards rushing. They said that they were trying to penetrate last year. We talked to Tim Go today, or rather last week. Today he said they're going to slide down the line of scrimmage. They want to cut off the running lanes that they didn't do last week.
3rd and 4. Flags come in. Chandler's pass in and out of the arms of Derek Russell.
Looked like one of the defenders jumped a little bit earlier.
Might have been Dan Footman, number 78.
Chris Chandler has a very, very good hard count, one of the best in the league.
Offsides by the defense, number 78. 5-yard penalty results in a first down.
Indeed, it's on Footman.
You see in the replay, the bottom right of your screen, he jumps on that hard count. He's playing right over the center. Mark Stepnoski wants to get into the center very quickly. Dan Footman is a very, very good athlete. He's got great speed. He runs like a 4.7 40, which for a 300-pounder is fairly intimidating.
Looking for Willie Davis, incomplete. Antonio Langham on the coverage.
Antonio Langham does a good job of screening Willie Davis out and preventing him from getting to the ball. He plays between the ball and the wide receiver. In that situation, it worked out very nicely. The ball was a little bit underthrown or thrown to the inside.
Langham, the NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year in '94 when he was a first-round pick out of Alabama. 2nd down and 10 for Houston. They're at the Raven 46. Chandler rolling to his left. And intended for Willie Davis, incomplete. That'll bring a 3rd down. Donnie Brady on the coverage that time.
I'm not real sure what they're trying to accomplish by rolling Chris out so much. They seem to do that quite a bit. He tends to throw the ball, in my opinion, he throws the ball better in the pocket. There you see the Sean Connery lookalike. That's Rome, Jerry Rome.
You really get the Rome Sean Connery comparison when Rome takes the hat off and you see
Flacco.
3rd down, Houston 5 of 7 and incomplete this time. Derek Russell, the intended receiver, so 5 of 8 on 3rd downs. Isaac Booth with a nice play, and we'll see Reggie Roby in for the punt.
Had the ball been thrown out in front of the receiver more, he could have gotten it. He was open, but the ball was thrown behind him and allowed the defender to catch up.
Jermaine Lewis stands back at his 10 for Baltimore. Reggie Roby, whose first punt was 42, was very upset with his performance last week in Jacksonville. Only had 2 punts, but neither one were up to his usual specifications. A flag comes in as Roby hangs this one up, stops the play.
Both of Roby's punts last week came from deep in his own territory. Those are the situations.
False start by the right tackle. 5-yard penalty. Remains 4th down.
Those are the situations where you want your punter to get their best kicks. That's usually, that's the only time the punter really has any pressure on him.
Reggie Roby, a veteran in his 14th year.
They've got these defensive linemen or these linebackers playing offensive line positions where they can't move until the ball is snapped. They're not used to waiting, having to exercise that sort of discipline.
So Reggie will try it again. In his words, his 2 punts last week stunk. You're right, he was backed up in his own end zone. And the snap a little high by the new punt snapper, James McKeon. Roby's punt will bounce out of bounds pretty good at about the 14-yard line. And that's where Baltimore takes over with 11:58 left in the 3rd quarter and trailing by 10. Welcome back Bruce Matthews has an injured knee. He'll continue to snap on field goals, but his return on the offensive line for Houston is questionable as Baltimore begins this series. In the air, Vinny Testaverde skips it in, a wobbler, incomplete to Michael Jackson.
Oh, that was an ugly looking pass right there. It looked like it might have slipped out of his hands. He knows it. Maybe some of that eye black got on his fingers. Play action pass where he's got to turn his back to the defenders. Just an ugly pass on that.
Well, compiling Houston's injury problems, Marcus Robertson, safety, just left the field for Houston. 2nd down and 10 from the 13. And this pass complete. Right side to Ernest Biner. Close to the 20-yard line.
Marcus Robertson had the knee surgery last year, wasn't he? Missed a large part of the season.
Well, they're taping his ankle, it looks like there. He missed all but 2 games last year with a torn ACL in the right knee. He's had injury problems his entire career. Already 3 interceptions on this young season, including an earlier pick today of Vinny Testaverde, which led to a Oiler touchdown. Baltimore with another crucial 3rd down attempt here. They need 4 for the 1st down. Testaverde incomplete. He wanted Biner, and that'll bring up another 4th down, and he's complaining to referee Ed Hockney about something.
They saw the blitz coming. They lined up in what they call their 46 defense, and they brought a lot of guys. But Vinny saw it. Running back saw it. Just was not a well-thrown ball.
So Greg Montgomery comes in. He still owns the Oilers record for the highest career punting average of better than 43.6. Somewhat peculiar. He was out of football last year.
Went to the Pro Bowl in '94. Sat out all of '95.
And this is a high snap over the head of Montgomery. And he just throws it out.
Very heads-up play, though.
And that will result in the safety. But Brian Kinchin with an errant snap over the head of Montgomery. That was a heads-up play because you got to believe that Houston would quickly turn that into a touchdown. Instead, it's just a safety.
Watch the snap get too high. Just sails on Brian Kinchin. He's been the snapper. He's not a new snapper. He tried. Montgomery misses the first time he sees it. And he says, "I'm getting rid of this thing." Oh, did it get out of there? He goes, "Hey, you guys okay?"
It is a heads-up play, Bart. Even though Houston will get the ball back on the free kick, but they do have a 19-7 lead now.
Emmett, Dion, Troy, and the world champs host Jim Harbaugh on the Colts. Game 2 next on NBC.
Well, Bart, Greg Montgomery is 6 feet 4 inches tall, but not even he could get the handle on the errant snap by Brian Kinchin. So now at the free kick, Montgomery will do the honors from the 20-yard line. Mel Gray drifting back to his 15, so the Oilers will get better field position than normal as you take a look at Kinchin. As you said, a long snapper.
Nice high punt.
Gray from the 16. Somehow gets out of it, still on his feet. Across the 30. Flag comes in as Gray gets up to the 45-yard line, but a flag comes in. And that gives you an example of what Mel Gray has done so well for so many years. He is 31-yard kickoff return. He probably traveled 60 yards with the call against Houston.
He is such an exciting runner. Look, he's a little wobbly. Maybe he's tired from running so far. Such an exciting guy.
Illegal block in the back. Other receiving team number 66. 10-yard penalty to 1st down.
That penalty called on Jason Lehman. Now Gray just collapsing on the field. Take another look.
it looks like he's all hemmed in. Either covered him on the left, on the right. You've got his own guy almost tackled him. LaShawn Adam misses the tackle there.
But Mel Gray is still on the field at the 50-yard line. We'll get a word on him when we come back. Good news for Houston. Mel Gray walking off the field under mostly his own power after this great return. And maybe it happened right there when he ran into his own man, Raphael Robinson, on the left shoulder, Bart.
It did, but if that's the case, it's amazing because he still runs another 50 yards and makes a cut back inside against the grain.
But back to the 25, they bring it after the penalty. Bruce Matthews is not a member of the offensive line for Houston. He's out with an injured knee, and Wycheck calls in another Chandler pass into Raven territory. Gain of 26 for Wycheck. 7th reception of the game.
Frank Wycheck lines up on the line of scrimmage. He looks out like he's going to head out, and then he heads back up the field. The defender does not stay with him.
Mel Gray is now being escorted off the field. Seems to be holding his head, left forehead area. But a first down for the Oilers on the big gain by Wycheck, and another great play action by Chandler, looking downfield deep. Sanders can't hang on. That was Donnie Brady on the coverage of Sanders.
Like Sanders is down in the end zone. Play action pass. Chris Chandler is looking to Sanders the entire way. He airs it out, throws it out, and lets Sanders run under it. Looks like he came down real hard. He gets behind Donnie Bradley.
Came down his left side rather hard. Chandler thought he had a touchdown, but Sanders is still down in the end zone. And let's take another injury timeout with 9:52 left in the third. Back in a moment. Injuries beginning to mount for Houston. That is Chris Sanders still on the ground after he wasn't able to haul in the Chandler pass. Bruce Matthews not a part of the offensive line for Houston, and Marcus Robertson a twisted ankle, even though we think he will return to the ball game. And Mel Gray has just left the field. He's in the locker room getting stitches under his left eye. Let's take another look at Sanders.
He makes the effort to the ball right on the goal line, and he hits the ground very hard right on his left side, and very unceremoniously skid.
Well, next Saturday, while we still await the condition of Chris Sanders, let's remind you that at 3 o'clock Eastern, it's the Solheim Cup, the first of 2 days of coverage, as the Americans, led by Dottie Pepper, defend the cup versus a strong European team led by two-time U.S. Open champion Annika Sorenstam. Coverage begins next Saturday at 3 o'clock Eastern time. This is the ladies' version of the Ryder Cup. Exciting match play in Wales next weekend. And good news for the Oilers, Chris Sanders is up and walking.
If you can call that walking, that is a very slow walk. That is a painful walk. I'm walking, but I'm not comfortable. You're going to be in Solheim, is that correct?
I am going to be in South Wales next weekend.
A little
match
golf,
play.
little Scottish golf. Not very good, huh?
What, your accent? 9:52 left in the third quarter. Houston up 19-7. I mentioned the injury problems for them. Up front, Eric Norgaard has replaced Bruce Matthews at the left guard position. And Chandler to throw. That pass incomplete. He wanted Ronnie Harmon.
Chandler's not looked sharp thus far in the third quarter. He's underthrown some guys. He hasn't been real accurate. The accuracy that he demonstrated the first half has not been exhibited thus far in the third quarter.
401 yards total offense last week against Jacksonville. This half, Chris Chandler, as you look at his numbers, he's only 2 for 7 as he's cooled off in the second half a bit. 3rd down and 10. Chandler steps up in the pocket, wants Wycheck again, and Wycheck almost made a spectacular one-handed grab. Eric Turner on the coverage of Wycheck.
Play they ran a little bit earlier where they hit Wycheck. He's lined up. Takes off, takes a little head fake to the outside. Stephon Moore stays on him much tighter this time. And Eric Turner is there, almost make an interception. Tried to go for it a little. You've got to vary it a little bit more than that. You can't come back after it works.
So Reggie Roby comes in to punt on 4th and 10. Jermaine Lewis back at the 10-yard line for Baltimore.
See how the young guy snaps?
A good snap by McKeon. It's Kitchen who has had the problems on his one snap earlier, which resulted in the Houston Oilers safety, but Jermaine Lewis hauls this one in at the 18-yard line. 31-yard punt by Roby, and experience the NFL all week long on NFL.com, the official website of the National Football League, for all of the tackles, touchdowns, and a live game day scoreboard. Click on NFL.com.
Go surfing the net.
For NFL action.
There you go.
Well, the Ravens, despite being down by 12 here with the Houston Oilers offense sputtering a bit, have a chance to get back in this game with 9:33 left. They'll begin this drive at the 18-yard line. Ernest Biner with a carry. Maybe a yard or two, but that is all. Stacked up on the line of scrimmage by a host of Oilers.
The Oilers are playing that 8-man front in that particular play. Very difficult to run against an 8-man front.
There's Michael Barrow. We mentioned last week that he is the smartest player that Jeff Fisher has ever coached. This is a very complicated defense, Bart. We'll get into it as we get along this series, but there are as many as, 35 different formations that the Houston Oilers defensive players have to learn each week for each team.
Exactly.
2nd down and 9 for the Ravens. Testaverde, the pocket closes in on him, and in for the sack is Steve Jackson, who was blitzing in from the corner.
Steve Jackson is so small that they can't even see him. He comes in from the outside. He ducks underneath. The running back who's supposed to pick him up, Carwell Gardner, loses him because he runs behind the big defensive lineman. And Testaverde is right in the path.
First sack of the ball game, or is it on Testaverde? Yes, it is the first sack. It's turned in by the corner, Steve Jackson, and now on that loss of 9, it is 3rd down and 18. That was Barrow pressuring Testaverde, but he gets it off. That one almost picked off by Darrell Lewis, who already has an interception earlier in the first quarter. The intended receiver was Michael Jackson.
Fisher said he wanted to pressure Testaverde because he felt that if there's one thing that he wasn't very good at, and that was his accuracy. While he had a good, strong arm, he just didn't display the accuracy of a quarterback, and that if they pressured him, he felt that they could force him into some throws that would be able to intercept.
And there is Malcolm Floyd in for the ball game for the injured Mel Gray to return the punt of Greg Montgomery. And this not nearly as good a punt as Montgomery turned in earlier, but Floyd will let this take a Raven bounce. And they'll mark it off at about the 38-yard line. And we'll take another break with just about 8 minutes left. In the third, Houston with a 12-point lead. Pretty quiet game thus far for Eddie George, who had 143 rushing yards last week. His numbers today, just 8 carries for 26 yards. And again up front at the left guard position in place of Bruce Matthews, out with an injured knee, is Eric Norgard, an 8-year man out of Colorado. There's Bruce on the sidelines.
He's assuming a very unusual position for him. That's being on the sidelines while the Oilers' offense is on the field. We never saw where he got hurt. I mean, that just shows you the offensive linemen. You know, they get hurt, they keep playing, and they walk off the field. You really never know they got hurt. Tough guys, right, Dan?
You bet, Bart. Eddie George
Resounding.
trying to gain some more and pad that average and gets the first down. So right when we say that Eddie George has been a little quiet, he rips off a good game.
He says, I want some of the action here. I haven't been getting too many carries here as of late.
That one good for 13 yards.
Good cut. The play was designed to go to the left side. There was nobody there. They did a good. Ravens did a good job of cutting the lane off. He simply makes the hole for himself. He cuts back, much like he did in the long run last week against Jacksonville.
Picks up the first down at the Raven 48. 7:30 left. Houston already up 19-7. And Eddie George with a carry again, another good gain. It hasn't been probably too well publicized outside of the Houston area, Bart, but as you take a look at Donna George, Eddie's mother, she is a flight attendant, and Eddie George's agent Lamont Smith persuaded Eddie George's mother to not work the day that Eddie was presented with his new contract for Houston at the press conference. It just so happened that she was scheduled to work TWA flight 800 that day, and we all know about the tragic crash out of the Atlantic Ocean in July. So that was very fortunate that Donna, of course, attended the press conference of Eddie George as he gets another carry close to the first down, but that was almost eerie.
As you mentioned earlier, he gave her his first touchdown ball from the touchdown he scored last week. I can't tell whether she has it with her or not, but looks like she's got that camera ready to snap some pictures if he scores another one.
He's always been very close to his mother, but he mentioned that he's become even closer after that narrow escape.
It's a sign that you really don't know how much you have until you've almost lost it.
3rd and 2. Oilers trying to keep the drive alive. Eddie George darting for first down yardage. Close to the 36-yard line. Ray Lewis, we haven't called his number very often today for the Ravens, but he's the Ravens' leading tackler and their #1 pick out of Miami. Made the stop.
The play is designed to go over to the left. There's not much surge. He just takes it back to the right. Does it all on his own there. Very instinctive runner. He gets up and he wants to get that offense going. You tell he says, let's get going, guys. This is a guy that plays well beyond his years. Very mature young man.
12 carries, 51 yards for George. 1st and 10 for Houston. The fake. Chandler. Complete. Derek Russell. Another first down for Houston. Actually, Willie Davis hauled it in. Donnie Brady on the coverage, but a 14-yard gain for Davis.
Demonstration of what happens when you've got your running game going. The play-action pass. Chandler rolls out and hits Davis on the comeback right on the sideline.
Chandler really likes the routes that Willie Davis runs.
He did say he's not real comfortable with the rollout because he has to turn his back to the defensive backs. And he loses track of them, but in this particular, at this particular play, it worked out very nicely.
For the first down. Chandler on the mark again to Malcolm Floyd. That is Floyd's first reception of the game.
What you call a quick two-step drop. Takes a step back, and then he just throws it. He's going to throw it on timing, and the receiver is sitting there.
Well, it was Floyd last week who hauled in a 63-yard touchdown. Among his 90 yards of receiving, both career highs for him. Jacksonville coach Tom Coughlin called the one touchdown pass the transcontinental pass from Chris Chandler. He was wide open in a busted defensive secondary coverage by Jacksonville. Eddie George gets the handoff and turns what looks like a short gain once again into a good gain. Picks up the first down.
You mentioned about Eddie George's physical attributes. He's 6'3", he's probably close to 230 pounds. Very good-looking athlete. But he runs low. Takes the ball, and then he ducks low, and he stays low, and he's always driving those legs forward, trying to make that extra yard or two.
First and goal. Ball at the 10-yard line for Houston, and a good drive. 3:25 left in the third. Chandler. Pass complete. Antonio Langham brings down Floyd immediately.
When you're this close to the goal line, the defenders, the quarterbacks have got to play those receivers a little bit tighter. You can't give them 5 yards. It may not seem like much, and it's not when you're down in your side of the field, but when you're deep down in your own territory, you've got to tighten up that coverage. You've got to prevent those kind of passes and those kind of plays.
So Floyd with a couple of pass receptions here in the third quarter. Out for a gain of 6. Second down and goal from the 4.
Chandler mentions motions for quiet from the crowd.
As if he needs it. And George trying for that second effort. This time the Ravens defense pushes him back. Third and goal. Eddie George is a chiseled athlete, to say the least. A fitness fanatic. Works out tirelessly in the offseason and during the season. And here's an example of the way he said he always keeps his legs churning till the very end of the play. You never know when he's going to get that extra yardage.
The habit of a lot of tall running backs is to run upright. And they run tall, and they don't pick up the positive yards when they get hit. Eddie George is instinctively a low runner. He does a terrific job with that.
He's out of the ball game now, but he's got 6 carries and 30 yards on this drive. Third and goal. And there's Ronnie Harmon in for the score.
Very nicely designed play. They spread him out here with 3 wide receivers.
First carry of the game for Harmon. And it turns into his first touchdown in a Houston Oilers uniform.
Frank White, this is a simple counter with the guard. Great block by Frank Wycheck there. A counter play with the guard and the H-back pulling and opening up a nice hole for Harmon. Ronnie says, I like those kind of runs.
And Eddie George helps set it up with his 6 carries for 30 yards. So Ronnie Harmon on his only carry of the day thus far adds to the Oiler lead. As Del Greco's point after is good. And here's Eddie George and Jeff Fisher celebrating what now is a 26-7 lead. Did I say George Fisher or Jeff Fisher? Well, let's check in once again with the Dolphins and Jets. And for that, we know we go to Greg Gumbel.
In Miami, Dan Marino, 2-yard touchdown pass to Frank Wainwright. Marino's second touchdown pass of the day. Joe Nedney missed the extra point, but the Dolphins have just scored again. Another Marino TD pass, 26-14 in the third.
38-year-old Jeff Fisher. Well, we know he has the respect of all the players on his team, Bart. No doubt about it.
I don't know if you've noticed, but every time that if one of his players gets hurt, he runs out onto the field. He kneels down with him. For instance, when Chris Sanders was in the end zone, he was there with him the whole time, kind of kneeling down with the trainers, making sure that his guys are okay.
You talk about a guy that loves to talk football. I could sit in there for hours and listen to Jeff Fisher talk football, especially defensive formations. And he's the kind of guy that just loves to talk X's and O's, doesn't he?
Well, he's a young guy, one of the youngest coaches, I think second youngest head coach in the league behind Shula, and he loves this game.
And he tests his players religiously each week to see if they know all the formations that he puts together. Jermaine Lewis is stopped across the 25-yard line. And we mentioned earlier about this Oilers defense, which gets about 35 formations or so a game to memorize. Baron Wortham, the middle linebacker, who's taken over for Al Smith, says he starts feeling the pressure on Tuesday night when the coaches fax the players the defensive formations that they're going to have to memorize for that week, he says that fax machine starts worrying and I start worrying.
Well, they have what they call a call sheet. Call sheet is what calls the middle linebacker and Marcus Robertson, the safety, will make in when they see certain formations. In this case, you have 3 wide receivers, and they have to make a call to put together a defensive alignment.
Ernest Biner breaking a tackle and picking up extra yardage for the first down before Marcus Robertson made the stop. Steve Sidwell is the defensive coordinator for the Houston Oilers, but Jeff Fisher very active on the defensive side for Houston. As you mentioned, he comes out and checks all the players.
He's getting plenty of
injuries.
exercise today. Today he's getting some exercise.
And that's Blaine Bishop, the injured player for Houston. So the injuries continuing to mount up for the Oilers. Another look.
Blaine Bishop's the guy. Comes on, it's just one-on-one. He gets low, and there's that strong drive from Ernest Biner. Impressive run right there.
We have an update on Chris Sanders, who was injured earlier, a pinched nerve in his left shoulder. His return is probable. But now Blaine Bishop on the ground, the Pro Bowler from last year. As you take a look at Chris Sanders, but Blaine Bishop led the Oilers with 97 tackles last year, and you mentioned earlier in the game how significant his progress has been, especially since he plays so many different positions in Jeff Fisher's defense.
Blaine Bishop told us he loves this defense because it allows him to showcase his athletic abilities. He came in out of Ball State, a fairly small school, not a highly recognized player, but he's a good athlete that runs well. He's a tough guy. In this case, he ran into Ernest Biner, the 13-year veteran, and Ernest, I think, came up the better of the two on that one.
You would have to say that Blaine Bishop, the best football player to ever come out of Ball State. I know that Bernie Parmalee provides his stiffest competition, so
I say maybe his only competition. There haven't been too many guys, although Blaine, he did mention Bernie Parmalee. He said there was another guy that got drafted a couple years ago, didn't make it. Looks
coming
like
up next, most of you will see, in fact, the majority of you will see the big game coming up next on NBC. The Colts take on the Dallas Cowboys in Irving, Texas, as we continue our doubleheader action on this Sunday in the NFL. Houston with a 26-7 lead over Baltimore. The Ravens with the ball at their own 38-yard line. 1:15 and counting remaining in the third quarter. The Ravens have to get something going on this drive. And Testaverde's pass complete to Kinchin. Brought down by Michael Barrow, but it was Kinchin who had the high snap earlier in this game, which cost the Ravens a couple more points on the safety.
It's more difficult for a guy that's playing full-time that do snapping as well as play, particularly an offensive player like Brian is.
And you see Blaine Bishop check back into the Houston defense.
Shakes that burner off a little bit. Looks like the Oilers are playing that soft zone.
Ernest Biner with a carry, picks up the first down. And hobbling off a little bit.
He's had that, he told us he had a toe problem that he hurt in Oakland. He hurt his second toe, and but he did mention he wasn't getting a lot of sympathy from the offensive lineman. He said, you got your toe hurt. So it looks like it might have aggravated it a little bit here.
He's in obvious pain there. Biner with 69 yards on the ground on 18 carries. So Leroy Horde is in the offensive backfield as the final seconds tick off in the third quarter. And the pass complete to Michael Jackson. And that will be the final play of the third quarter as Baltimore tries to get something going offensively, down 26-7. We'll be right back after these messages and a word from your local station. Well, the scoring after three quarters, it was Houston with a 14-0 lead. Baltimore got its only score in the second quarter, and all 9 have come from the Oilers in the third quarter. But Baltimore on the drive here. Ernest Biner back in the game and dropped for a loss behind the line of scrimmage. That was number 96, Gary Walker. We'll take another scoring update. Head to New York and Greg Gumbel.
All right, Dan, and we'll take you to Lambeau Field in Green Bay, where Brett Favre has thrown his 3rd touchdown pass of the day, his 10th of the season. That 7-yarder to Keith Jackson. It is a 28-3 Green Bay lead early in the 4th quarter over San Diego. Dan and Bart, back to you.
Thank you, Greg. Similar score here in Houston, but Baltimore on the drive at the Oiler 45. 3rd down conversion, and they pick up the 1st down. Kinchin spinning his way to the 36.
Good job by Baltimore there, recognizing the blitz, the receiver getting open. Vinny Testaverde hits him over the middle.
2nd catch of the ball game for Kinchin. Under 14 minutes left.
It's important for the Ravens to get something done offensively here. They're moving it a little bit, but they need to produce some points.
And it is so quiet, you would think that the fans normally in this situation would make a lot of noise, and that is picked off again. Darrell Lewis with his 2nd of the game. Intended for Michael Jackson. 3rd interception by Vinny Testaverde.
Then he's looking down the field the whole time. He throws it. Good interception and a terrific hit.
Darrell Lewis, 2 interceptions, and the Oilers take the ball right back. Houston with the ball right back. 1st and 10 from the 30. Chandler complete across the middle, and he's got Rodney Thomas. Let's go back to the last interception, the 2nd of the game, turned in by Darrell Lewis.
You'll see the ball is thrown. Watch Marcus Robertson down the bottom. You'll lose him, but he comes back into the screen. The ball's thrown a little behind, and Mark Robertson makes a big hit on Michael Jackson. And they're a little concerned about the hit to the head on unprotected players. But he hits him right in the chest here. What a shot to take.
And Eric, excuse me, Bart, Eric Zaire has begun to warm up on the sidelines. He's the backup quarterback for Baltimore. He replaced Vinny Testaverde last season as the starter. As Chandler gives it to Rodney Thomas, and Rodney Thomas gives the Oilers another 1st down. Before this game, it was Jeff Fisher who was telling us that he wanted to give Rodney Thomas more carries. He only had 9 last week for 27 yards, and just his 3rd of the game thus far today.
Jeff Fisher told us that Eddie George was going to get the bulk of the carries. But last week, he got a lot more carries. He got the 9, as you mentioned, whereas the week before, he only gotten 1 carry. So they do want to get him more involved in the offense because these 2 running backs complement themselves. One's a slashing runner, and one's more of the power running, the Eddie George type.
Well, the injured player for Baltimore is Rick Lyle. We'll take a break. Well, the injured player for Baltimore still down is Rick Lyle. He is making just his 2nd career start today. He fills in for the injured Anthony Pleasant, who's been inactive the last couple of weeks due to an ankle injury in the opener. Saturday, Bart, it's the 2-hour movie premiere of Dark Skies, and the invasion is about to begin. We've all, of course, heard about the stories of UFOs. Could it be that alien life has been on Earth for a long time and they've taken human form, perhaps? Dark Skies. Mark your calendar and watch the 2-hour movie premiere on NBC Saturday at 8/7 Central. Dark Skies is coming. And I'm sure, Bart, that Dark Skies will be a big hit in the Oates household.
Oh, no question about it. But, hey, you know Dan McGuire, too, right? I mean, there's always a question about that.
Dan McGuire?
Paul McGuire? Let's go Paul McGuire.
No relation?
I think it's his brother. Long-lost brother, by the way.
Well, we've seen more than a few injuries today. We've noted the Houston injuries, and now Rick Lyle, a restricted free agent, signed a couple of years ago. In his 3rd year, he was on injured reserve all last year with a back injury. He's a player out of Missouri. I imagine that Baltimore will have to come in with yet another backup. It could be Elliot Fortune. But play has been stopped with 12:31 left. Houston with a big 26-7 lead. And that appears to be an air cast on the leg of Rick Lyle.
He doesn't look like he's in extreme pain or very uncomfortable at this point. But
well, perhaps we can pick up something from this angle.
it's difficult to tell. It looks like he gets his leg twisted in the pile in some way. Right in this area is where Dan's at, or Rick's at. It's like someone falls on the leg. We hope that he's going to be okay. All of a sudden, we're getting a spate of injuries here, Dan.
Well, Marcus Robertson appears to be all right. He had the twisted ankle, and he had the big hit on Michael Jackson, which helped Darrell Lewis with the interception. So Houston 1st and 10 at its own 44-yard line. Taking plenty of time off the clock. Rodney Thomas with another carry. Rodney Thomas, his rushing total last year, the second highest ever for an Oilers rookie. Only Earl Campbell surpassed that back in 1978. But the Houston offense, Bart, very balanced attack. You consider that the run and shoot was here for so many years. It was obviously very much pass-oriented in that era. And then you consider the Earl Campbell era, that was a big ground-oriented attack. But Houston seems to have found the right balance with Jerry Rome as the offensive coordinator and Chris Chandler as the quarterback, and with the emergence of Eddie George and Rodney Thomas as a two-pronged attack.
It's been a very good offense thus far.
Thomas again. Close to midfield. And the clock continuing to roll. 11:14 left.
Here you'll watch Mark Stepnoski, the All-Pro center. He's going to pull around. Not too many centers. Probably Dermontti Dawson's the only guy in the league that can do that. He comes around on Ray Lewis, makes a good block, allows him to pick up some good positive yards. Got a third down situation here.
Kind of a quiet guy, Mark Stepnoski. We had a chance to talk to him last week. You'd think a guy that's been to the Pro Bowl 4 years will be a little more vocal, but that's the way he gets things done, by example.
Very unassuming guy.
Chandler to the air, in and out of the arms of Malcolm Floyd, incomplete, and that'll bring up 4th down. Well, tickets sold at the Astrodome today, 21,679. The actual attendance well below that, just a little more than 20,000. When you consider that the Astrodome seats about 60,000, it is a rather cavernous look. This is inside the dome today, and I think the sign says it all, Bart.
Not a big crowd. This is reminiscent of back in '84 when I was playing in the USFL for the Philadelphia Baltimore Stars.
Reggie Roby, high hanging punt. Jermaine Lewis was back deep. Flags coming in from all directions now, as it appeared that he called for a fair catch.
The defenders did not allow him the room to get to the ball. Didn't really, I mean, a lot of times you see it where the guy will come in and run into the guy that's trying to catch the ball.
Meantime, Eric Turner has taken the football and run the length of the field to the other end zone.
Well, Eric, you can bring that sucker back. It's going to be a little penalty on the Oilers here. They just didn't allow Jermaine opportunity to catch the ball. Didn't really knock him down, just ran into him gently. But it's still a penalty. He has a right to have an opportunity to catch the ball unimpeded by the coverage team.
Well, there is Jermaine Lewis, the punt returner for Baltimore, and after a involved conference, which is still going on between Ed Hockley and his crew, maybe we'll finally get a call.
And they had those flags coming in from all different angles. Watch him as he sets up. He's sitting on the 10-yard line. The ball is punted a little bit short.
There's the fair catch, but a little late on the signal, wouldn't you say, Bart?
It really doesn't matter how late the signal comes in this situation. He still has the right to catch the ball
A
unimpeded.
member of the kicking team was blocked. That momentum caused him to hit the kick receiver. Therefore, there is no foul on the play. The result of the play is a touchback, 20-yard line, first down.
Tamor Barnes was the man who made contact with Lewis.
We didn't see that part. That's a horrible call.
I don't understand
That is
call
that
at
is
all.
an absolutely horrible call. Nobody touched Tamor Barnes. If I were Ted Marchibroda, I think I'd get as animated as he was last week. Nobody touched him. How could you call that? They missed that. Just flat out missed that one.
It was Tamor Barnes who made the contact with Lewis. And now they're conferencing again.
But it's not even a matter of an interpretation that he was pushed into the guy. Nobody was there to even touch him. We'll look again at it. As he's running down, this is Tamor there. Nobody touches him.
After receiving additional information from another official, there was interference with the opportunity to catch the kick by the kicking team. It's a 15-yard foul from the spot, first down.
So now Jeff Fisher's team will be called for the penalty. Bad contact by Tamor Barnes. You're right, Bart.
Yeah, it was, I mean, initially they made the wrong call. And somebody came back, one of the officials was alert enough to say, wait a minute, this is wrong. He was not touched. Let's change the call.
I think we need a break, Bart. With 10:20 left in the game, Houston with a 19-point lead. The game, we mentioned how upset Ted Marchibroda was with his team in preparation for last week's loss against Pittsburgh. Said they had a good week of practice, but trailing 26-7 here against Houston with 10:20 to go. Vinny Testaverde remains in at quarterback for the Ravens and completes this one across the 35. Raphael Robinson on the coverage along with Steve Jackson. Eric Zeier was warming up on the sidelines after the unsuccessful series which resulted in an interception earlier. There is Eric Zeier. He replaced Vinny Testaverde as the starter for 4 games last year on the then Browns team. He went 1-3 as the starter as Vinny got the job back, but this one complete to Derek Alexander. Lane Bishop on the stop.
The Browns have gone to their
Hurry up.
The Ravens, rather, excuse me. I wonder who was going to be the first to make that mistake. The Ravens have gone to their no-huddle offense.
But Jeff Fisher has told us that the no-huddle wouldn't be a concern for his defense because he says we're automatic on our coverage anyway. Swings it out to Biner. And the stop made by Chris Dishman. But they did use the hurry-up offense in the opener and did it successfully. When they beat Oakland 19-14, they used it just for a series or two in the loss to Pittsburgh. But Ted Marchibroda is the man that invented the no-huddle, of course, using it so successfully for the Buffalo Bills during his tenure there. Ball just across midfield, second down. And Testaverde going deep down the sidelines. Incomplete. Wanted Calvin Williams. Steve Jackson there on the coverage.
As you mentioned, Dan, the Oilers' defense is designed to match up against particular formations. There may be 30 to 35 formations and offense runs in a game, and they have to make 3 or 4 defenses assigned to that particular formation. Everybody in that defense is responsible for knowing what those adjustments are, what those defenses are that are related to the formation that are being run, and so that's why they can match up so well and make their adjustments in Jeff Fisher's system, his defensive system.
Quick scoring. It's going to be incomplete as Testaverde wanted Kinchin on the quick slanting pattern. Raphael Robinson broke it up. So that'll bring up 4th down for the Ravens, and with 8:49 left and trailing by 19, you know Ted Marchibroda has to go for this one.
They've made some penetration. They're on the Houston side of the field. It's important for them to come up with it. They just have to they haven't been making the plays today. This team is, they've played very, very inconsistently. You've seen some very good things from them, and then you've seen some very ugly things from them.
It's a long 2 yards. they had it. The ball was caught by Calvin Williams, good enough for the first down, but Steve Jackson, who makes another good play, jars it loose.
Steve Jackson is the guy that they bring in when they go in what they call their nickel defense, or when they go with 5 defensive backs. He plays the cornerback. He does a good job there of stripping the ball and turning it over to the Houston Oilers.
I guess who's checked into the Houston lineup? Steve McNair taking over for Chris Chandler, his very first action of 1996. You see the numbers for him last year. He, of course, is the $28 million man for Houston, and his first handoff goes to Eddie George. And George picks up some good ground along the right side.
Bringing Steve McNair in to hand the ball off a little bit, I think.
Well, there's better than 8 minutes left. They want to see what kind of job he can do. A good day, though, for Chris Chandler. 16 of 27. 2 more touchdown passes for him. That brings his season total to 6. And it was Steve McNair, Bart, who started the last, he was 2-0 last year as a starter. It was Chandler who had to sit out the last 2 games with a case of mono. And but it was Jeff Fisher who assured Chandler before the season started that he was going to be the man at quarterback. And that McNair was to be the understudy, and he's proven good on his word as George gets the carry again for first down yardage.
A good job by Steve McNair of a fake here. Hands off. He hands off to Eddie George. Completes the fake. Middle linebacker Ray Lewis, he flowed with Steve McNair thinking that he still had the ball. He was completely out of position to make the play there.
73 yards for Eddie George. Still make it to 100 yards before this game is out. But a little glimpse of the future here with Steve McNair at quarterback and Eddie George in the backfield. And this time Eddie George stopped for no gain. But getting back to the ability of Steve McNair, they feel that one day he's going to be there. He's the type of quarterback that can take this team into the playoffs and beyond. But Chris Chandler at this stage in his career, according to Jeff Fisher, gives the team the best chance to win right now. Eddie George is a bit shaken up.
Maybe he's a little tired. I think he's okay. Yeah, a little bit limpy. But Steve McNair, while he won the 2 games last year when he came in, showed a lot of courage on the part of Jeff Fisher. Mom says, "Hi, Eddie." George keeps that low style, keeps those legs driving, always moving forward.
Couldn't tell from that angle if he was shaken up or how he was hurt, but he seems to be all right. Look how big he is. Biceps bulging, the legs huge. He's quite a physical specimen. That may be it for him. 74 yards on the day as Rodney Thomas is checked back into the Houston lineup. 2nd down and 9. Houston with a big lead, and flags come in. Jason Lehman might have moved prematurely on Houston's offensive line.
Maybe Kevin Donnelly.
Before the snap, false start by the offense, number 66. 5-yard penalty, it remains 2nd down.
It is Lehman. 2nd-round draft pick out of Tennessee.
Well, Lehman's coming in there for Irv Eatman. Irv is the veteran player. He's been around for a long time. We happen to be teammates in the USFL. And he's still playing.
Well, there's big Irv Eatman. His 11th year unrestricted free agent acquisition.
Kevin Donnelly.
Atlanta.
Sorry, Dan. Kevin Donnelly was telling us that he knows all the players. He'll comment on all those guys.
McNair doing what he does best, turning what appeared to be a loss into a huge gain. Well, let's step aside from Houston and go to New York for a preview of that big Colts-Cowboys game coming up.
All right, Dan, Jim Harbaugh loosening up at Texas Stadium, and so is Troy Aikman. The game most of you will see next here on NBC. The 2-0 Colts taking on the 1-1 Dallas Cowboys. That's coming up next. Let's go back to Houston, Dan and Bart.
All right, the injured player for the Ravens after the 13-yard scramble by McNair is Rob Burnett. Rick Lyle has already been carted off on the Ravens defense. This has not been a memorable Sunday for the Baltimore Ravens.
Anthony Pleasant didn't even play. Rick Lyle's playing for Anthony Pleasant. The defensive ends for the Ravens are taking a pounding today. So we mentioned earlier about Jeff Fisher making the call, making the assurance to Chris Chandler that he was going to be the guy this year. You would think, I'm sure there was some pressure on Jeff Fisher to say, hey, Steve McNair's ready. He came at the end of the season. He played.
I'll watch the bottom right of the screen. You'll see Burnett dive in.
Ouch. Something hurt.
You mentioned a critical decision on the part of Jeff Fisher was also just as critical for Chris Chandler, who said, I had to trust Jeff Fisher on his word that I would be the guy and I wouldn't have to look over my shoulder at Steve McNair all the time. But he's put his trust in Jeff Fisher, and Fisher has been true on his word, and Chandler has been the undisputed quarterback. And while we wait for another injured player to be taken from the field, let's go to New York and hear again from Greg.
All right, Dan, take a look at what happened in Green Bay. Stan Humphries to throw, picked off by Leroy Butler, and clear sailing ahead. If he can just get past Humphries, no problem. 90 yards. Look out front row. Here comes Leroy. The Green Bay Packers running away with this one. It's now a 35-10 lead. Hello, fans, in the fourth quarter, Dan.
Thank you, Greg. 6 minutes left in this fourth quarter. Burnett walking off sidelines. And a lot of that today.
Very slowly coming off. Who are they going to put in defensive end? I think they're running out of defensive ends. Might have to put in some defensive tackle.
What was a fast-moving first half has turned out to be one of the slowest-moving second halves. Still 5:50 left in the fourth quarter. Third and short, as McNair was just short of the first down on his scramble. Rodney Thomas, I believe, was stopped short. Ed Sutter knifing in, along with Tim Goad defensively up front for Baltimore. And Al Del Greco will come on to attempt the field goal. So the first offensive series for Steve McNair. The injury report on Rick Lyle, the defensive end for Baltimore. A broken left fibula. So again, he was the man that replaced Anthony Pleasant. So now they're out without Pleasant and Lyle.
Well, Rick struggled last week against the tough John Jackson of the Pittsburgh Steelers. It looked like the defense was playing, or have played, a little bit better today with respect to the running game anyway.
Houston has just called a timeout, which gives us a chance to remind you that tonight on Dateline, some say sexual. The long snapper will, I assume, be Bruce Matthews, even though he has not been on the field on the offensive line for Houston, but he is indeed in the lineup ready to do the long snapping. He's able to do that, at least part.
Well, he's in there. He's getting ready to do the snap. He's been doing it for so long, in particular with the timing that is needed between the snapper, the holder, and the kicker. You don't want to change that unless you absolutely have to. And I'm sure that not too many people get reps other than Bruce during the course of a week of practice. McKeon has done a good job of snapping to Reggie Roby for punts.
Maybe it won't be too long until he replaces Matthews on these, but this is such a timing thing that we talked to Al Del Greco before the game. He said, no, you're not taking Bruce Matthews away from me.
Well,
timing is too good.
It's the timing, plus a lot of teams would put guys right up the middle.
44-yard field goal by Del Greco, his second of the game. He is 2 for 2, and as the Oilers inch closer to a victory here, they'll have a chance to rest because they have a bye next week, And then they go into Riverfront to take on the Steelers. 3 straight road games following the bye, so this was an important win for Houston.
That Pittsburgh game coming off the bye is going to be a good game. The Oilers have distinguished themselves as one of the better teams in this division.
It is a bye next week for the AFC Central, so the Ravens also have the week off, and then they host New Orleans, Patriots, and a couple of road games for the Ravens. But Baltimore will fall to 1-2 after today. It'll be interesting to see how animated Marchibroda gets in the off week for Baltimore.
He told us he thought his team would play better today. I think the effort level has been better today, but they just have made too many mistakes. The team has made the mistakes, the turnovers that has hurt them, has given the Oilers some fairly easy touchdowns.
29-7 with 4:53 left. It's always especially disconcerting to go into a bye week after a frustrating, disappointing loss when they didn't play very well.
The Oilers go in having won 2 in a row, feeling good about themselves, and then the Ravens cannot feel good about losing the last 2 games.
Jermaine Lewis brings it out for the Ravens. Lewis breaks a couple of tackles. He's had some good returns today. Brings this one all the way up close to the 45. He'll be marked out of bounds at the 42. Another injured player is down at the 17-yard line for Baltimore. That is Mike Frederick. About the only healthy moving object on the field is that canine, Bart, which goes in and retrieves.
The Ravens could use some healthy body over there, whether it's 4-legged or 2-legged.
41-yard kickoff return for Lewis. Sets up Baltimore at the 42.
Frederick a little banged up, playing a little defensive end right now. We'll see if he can't get back in there.
Vinny Testaverde remains the Baltimore quarterback. And that one complete to Kinchin, as tight end. Darrell Lewis, who has 2 interceptions on the day for Houston, makes the stop. I like the balance of this Houston team, Bart, especially when you look at the defensive secondary. All Pro Bowlers, Dishman, Bishop, Robertson, and Lewis. They are a little thin on defense up front as Biner takes the swing pass for the first down. But it's on offense where Houston has made such strides with Thomas and George and Chandler coming into his own. I think Houston really has put itself in position to make a good run at the playoffs.
Talking with Jeff Fisher, he felt that this team had the quality of players to be able to make it to the playoffs. They may not have the depth they need, particularly, as you mentioned, they're very shallow at the defensive line. But this is a type of defensive team that doesn't need a lot of great players in the front because they put so much pressure with the scheme. The scheme is so well designed that it puts pressure on the team's offense and their formation. So they can compensate for that lack of depth in the defensive line sometimes with some of the schemes they run.
And it'll be interesting to see if the Oilers continue to win this season, whether the fans will come back. You know they're never going to sell this out for the impending move to Nashville as Testaverde's pass goes incomplete, intended for Calvin Williams. But the winner should bring back some of the fans. What do you think?
Not only they're winning, they're doing it in an exciting fashion. I mean, they're playing well, they move the ball, they're playing good defense, they've got good special teams. Type of games, I mean, you like to see the way they play football.
And that one hauled in just inside the 20-yard line. Kinchin again on the reception. Clock running with 3:20 left.
As the Ravens line up here, they're in a formation. All of the defenders, all 11 of them, look at the formation. They recognize it here. And they have an automatic defense they play based on the formation.
Another pass complete and another one complete to Kinchin. Darrell Lewis on the coverage. Under 3 minutes left.
The Oilers are very content to allow the Ravens to pick up 4, 5, 6 yards a clip, knowing that there's just not enough time left.
So Kinchin pads his statistics. 6 catches for 54 yards. Testaverde to the air again. That one intended for Jackson. incomplete.
Chris Dishman on the defense there. We haven't heard his name too much today. He's the type of guy that you just don't throw at a lot. He's the franchise player for the Oilers, and he's a Pro Bowl player that plays terrific defensive back.
Well, Testaverde now to Biner as he continues to pad the statistics. So obviously Ted Marchibroda didn't want to go with Eric Zier, figuring that Vinny Testaverde is his guy, and he'll continue to try to get Vinny more repetitions to see if he can't get some more consistent play out of him.
Vinny hasn't had the consistency in coaching, and so I think Ted Marchibroda, that little flag there.
Well, that was Dishman on Jackson. And Dishman might have been called for it. And you know you're going to hear from Chris Dishman if he gets called on an interference play. The helmet's already off, and I think we know how he feels.
Well, on the first game of the season.
Correction, number 28.
After the interference call on Dishman.
Number 70 and 75 report to an eligible position.
And Chris is dishing it out on the sidelines.
Dishing it out on the field. He's got to get ready, get that helmet back on, get ready to play.
That was a little close call there. I don't know if that was very clear, but
Houston calls a timeout there before the snap.
Flag has also been thrown in the end zone on the far corner. 30 career interceptions for Dishman, tied for second most in Oilers history. 9-year veteran. He gives that defensive secondary more leadership.
This defensive secondary is a very tight-knit group. Wives are, they say on Friday nights they get together as a group with their wives and will do things together. Not only do they play well together, but they enjoy each other's company, which helps, because when things get rough, when the chips are down, they are able to rely upon each other. They have the faith in the other guy that he's going to do his job.
Well, Bart, this game better end in a hurry, or the Oilers and Ravens bye week will be through, over with.
We'll be right into that Pittsburgh game.
The first half just flew by, and then injuries and penalties.
Slowed down significantly here in the second half. So the crowd has stayed, right?
Well,
yeah, okay. A few have left in.
First and goal for the Ravens, trying to make the score look a little bit more respectable. And they do. And the eligible receiver, Herman Arvey.
The old tackle eligible, or is this a ineligible number at an eligible position?
Say that again. It's been a long game.
An ineligible number at an eligible position. He has a 70 on. It's an ineligible number.
Right.
But he's probably playing tight end, which is...
So he's an eligible receiver, right?
Eligible receiver. Can't see it there from that angle. But not only did the cameraman forget about Herman, but so did the Houston Oilers. Wide open in the end zone. Usually, the odds of the lineman catching that, I would think that for the most part, a 2-point conversion here.
Intercepted. Marcus Robertson.
What can happen? This is not like college.
Nope, you can't take it back.
And he's going to
do it anyway, right?
And he scores! I always wanted to say that.
Oh, so 2 for Robertson and 2 for Lewis.
With a resounding spike. That's right.
4 interceptions.
Does that count as an interception?
I would think it would.
Our statistician says...
I would think it would.
I don't know.
Oh, it does not. It's just a failed 2-point conversion.
It does not count. Wow. Marcus has been a ball hawk the last couple of games. We're going to... Dan, let's give that to him anyway. Let's just give him an interception on that.
All right. It's done, Bart.
Okay, he's got 2 interceptions today. Outstanding.
Now we're going to wait and see, though. We want to get an official word. I don't think it counts as an interception.
Oh, we can't do that?
A reminder, Colts and the Cowboys coming up next. 2-0 Indianapolis against Dallas at 1-1, and that'll be a gauge certainly for Indianapolis to see how good the Colts are this season.
The Oilers lost a onside kick last week that made the game against Jacksonville a fairly close game. We'll see what happens here. Lining up, Jeff Stover for the onside kick.
That's Matt Stover.
That one too, him too.
And travels 10 yards and out of bounds. So Stover picks up his kicking tee and moves it back.
Did that not touch anybody?
Didn't appear it did.
It went between arms and legs.
Well, it would be only fitting, Bart, that we had a huge delay here. Just short of the 2-minute warning.
You know, with this game, you never know. It keeps the fans in their seat just to see what's going to happen on the next
attempted onside kick was first touched by number 29 of the receiving team. Therefore, the receiving team keeps the ball at the out-of-bounds spot. First down.
All right. Ed Hockley with a clear call on that one.
The ball stays on the ground. Usually, they'll take a couple shots and bounce up. This never bounces up, just keeps going.
Well, that appeared that's where they hit the Oiler there, and last touch by Houston. So they take over at the 48, and another chance to see Steve McNair operate.
Chances are he won't throw too many passes in this situation.
Why not? You're up 29-13.
But you play these guys again at their home.
Well, you got a new quarterback in there. At least he can get the feel of it, huh? All right, we'll keep it on the ground to Rodney Thomas. And that'll take us to the 2-minute warning. The Houston Oilers have long had this game in command. It has been painful for Art Modell, the owner of the Baltimore Ravens, to watch this one. Team down 29-13. And is that Bud? No, for a second that looked like Bud Adams, but
incognito.
With the clerical collar, I assume Bud has gone back for some popcorn, and maybe this man has taken over his seat.
Well, maybe the Oilers can credit some divine intervention for their successes here the last couple of weeks. Looking so good.
I had a feeling, Bart, you would jump all over that segue.
I'm learning, Dad.
If we're real quiet, we might be able to hear Steve McNair's signals. McNair's dropped. His pass is dropped. A flag comes in. Antonio Langham put the hit on the intended receiver, Malcolm Floyd.
I like that throw.
And Langham will be flagged for it.
A little 3-step drop, and he drilled that ball.
And it was Mike Kroll who drilled Steve McNair.
They had the line of scrimmage stacked up. They're going to stop the run, or they're going to blitz the quarterback, whichever the case may be.
So 1st and 10 for the Oilers at the 33. Langham still steaming.
Well, Baltimore's got all 3 of their timeouts left. Let's see if they decide to use them judiciously this half.
Rodney Thomas, not much room. Clock continuing to roll. Minute 42 as you take a look at Green Bay all over San Diego, 42-10, and Miami has taken a good lead over the Jets.
Oh, the Jets are not giving up there.
How about those New York teams, though, Bart? 0-4 heading into this weekend's play.
I think they play each other in a week or two, so someone's got to win one in New York.
Something has to give.
Surprise here. You would think Detroit. Philadelphia's rebounding after disaster.
That picked pitcher tells him, look at the Patriots over the Cardinals, 31-0. As you take a look at the disgruntled Ravens sideline, and the Houston Oilers moving to 2-1. It could be 3-0. They lost to Kansas City in their opener 20-19. It was Bruce Matthews whose snap sailed a little high in that game as Al Del Greco missed a 55-yard field goal, but the Oilers will improve to 2-1. Elliot Fortune made the stop for the Ravens. We mentioned our thin up front. Pleasant has been down, and Rick Lyle was carried off with a broken fibula, so Elliot Fortune out of Georgia Tech makes the stop. Steve Everett.
Well, they've got most of the starters out of the game. Even the Ravens got most of their backups in. And that they're not going to risk any more injuries to their starters. They have to. Ted Marchibroda is going to have to do something with this team. They started out fairly well. They're not a bad team, Dan. They've got some good depth in their line, good offensive line. They just have to work on their consistency. You can't have a team that makes a big play and then gives up a big play. Or in this case, in the last 2 weeks, they've given up the big play first.
Early in the ball game, as you look at Vinny Testaverde, 2 early interceptions. The Oilers turned into 2 early scores to take a 14-0 lead, and they've really never looked back. Steve McNair surveying the field. And completed the pass. Derek Russell. And Russell's got the first down. So we did get a chance to see
He gets to throw a couple of passes here. 3rd down and long.
McNair go to the air. 18-yard gain.
Well, I think that pretty much seals it up. I don't think they have to take another snap other than just kneel on it. Good concentration. Derek Russell juggles it a little bit, holds on, gets the first down. They run out the clock from here. Last snap of the game, it looks like, unless Baltimore wants to use that last timeout that they wish they had in the first half.
And Rodney Thomas. And the clock continuing to roll with just 30 seconds left, so a good day for Chris Chandler. 2 more touchdown passes by him. Eddie George, another good game, although he didn't reach 100 yards. Another good outing for him. And Jeff Fisher and the Oilers will take a week off before resuming their 1996 schedule. They go to 2-1. The Baltimore Ravens fall to 1-2. The final score in Houston, Texas, the Houston Oilers 29, Baltimore Ravens 13. Stay tuned for the Indianapolis Colts and the Dallas Cowboys. We'll have that big game for you coming up after these messages and a word from our local station.